Okay, can you hear me okay?
I sure can.
So let's finish with the characterization. So there are four characters we characterized, meaning we figured out how the author characterizes the other three. Okay, Isaac is this kind of nebbish, kind of a sad sack. Rebecca is this one step ahead, clever, scheming, not particularly honest uh, wife or mother, and Esau. We've again, I don't know what kind of name to give it, but seems like a pretty like a simple fellow, but doesn't seem to have a bad like he doesn't seem to be like a brute. The only negative scene with him where he's hostile or aggressive is after Jacob swindles him, after he steals from him and cheats their father. We see him angry, but up until then he's kind of a simple, straightforward guy, kind of rough around the edges maybe, but not hostile to anyone. So how about Jacob? Yeah, how does the biblical author portray him?
He seems to take after his mother. He seems conniving, uh, a little uh, jealous, or feels a rivalry with Esau. He's described as like, fair-skinned and kind of a stay-at-home, as opposed to Esau as being out and hunting and all that kind of stuff.
And hairy. Yeah, so
Mhm.
Esau is hairy and rough and in the field, and Jacob is smooth-skinned and stays at home. Yeah.
But
Yeah. So
he steals that birthright, and he comes up with that scheme with his mother. He seems to take after his mother, it seems to me.
yeah, yeah, definitely. Look, the of all the character traits that we see in the young Jacob, okay, that so I'm asking this in reference to the material we read last week, up until Jacob leaves for Haran,
Hmm?
before the theft of the blessing. Um, of all the character traits, first of all, Jacob has that name, which already has bad connotations. And then all the traits that we're introduced to with this character, the most positive is that he's cunning. And that's not a positive. Like, nobody uses that as a compliment. So you're right. He's jealous, he's resentful, and deceitful. He's kind of a mama's boy. Again, if you look at that, what is it, 25, verse 27. 25, 27.
Jacob was a mild man and stayed in camp. Isaac favored Esau because he had a taste for game, but Rebekah
Yeah,
favored Jacob.
yeah, yeah. 27. Yeah. So a mild man sitting in tents is what it says in the Hebrew. Okay, so Esau is out in the field. Esau knows hunting and a man of the field, and Jacob, a mild man sitting in tents. Okay, so Esau is, as you say, Esau is his father's favorite. Esau is in the field. Esau hunts. Esau is strong. Esau is hairy. Esau, as we saw, is kind of straightforward and direct. I want, not kind of underhanded. So Esau is this kind of the image of masculinity for a biblical audience. Okay? By contrast, Jacob is this kind of like a mama's boy. Okay? He's his mother's favorite. He remains at home. He doesn't hunt, but instead he cooks. Again, that stew that he sells Esau. He's not hairy, but rather smooth-skinned. Okay, as we know from the scene where he cheats Isaac in verse, what is it? 27:11. 27. Yeah, and so Jacob said to Rebekah, but my brother Esau is hairy, and I'm a smooth man. Okay, and smooth in Hebrew, chalak, is kind of like in English. We're a smooth operator, slick. Okay, chalak, or like in Hebrew, you don't say so. Chalak is smooth, but if you want to say slick, like an adjective about a person, you'd say chalaklak, like smooth with a doubling of the last. Okay, so like slippery. Okay, so smooth versus slippery. Okay, so and I'm a slippery man, basically, is what he's saying. I mean, it's a double entendre. And again, in contrast to Esau, he's not forthright, he's not frank, but cunning and deceitful. So, look, you and I are not the only ones who notice this. Okay, Jacob is a problematic character for commentators through the ages, because I mean they find in him admirable qualities later in life, maybe. Okay, but he's always cunning, but his basic traits, none of them are admirable. Okay, so what could be the purpose of and this is not coincidental, obviously. The author constructs the characters in a certain way, and again, look, as you know from any eulogy, even if the character is slippery and a mama's boy and this, if the author wanted to make him, like, even if this is the historical portrait of the real Jacob, okay, the author can present, as we all do in eulogies, skim past the less attractive qualities and highlight the more attractive qualities. Okay? But the author doesn't do this. Okay? So what could be the purpose of this? And again, consider this is the hero of the story, not to mention the nation's ancestral patriarch. Okay? Yet the author seems to go out of his way to make him a not very attractive or inspiring or charismatic character. Okay? So there's clearly a purpose to this method, but what is it?
My first instinct is sometimes it takes someone who's good at dirty tactics to affect the end desired.
Although,
like machiavellianism comes to mind.
Yeah, no, I can see that, and look, last week you said that you mentioned at some point that that Isaac was deceived, and I said let's revisit that today. And so this Machiavellian, that this guy can get the job done because he is a step ahead and cunning, etc. Maybe, but in this respect, Jacob is actually not that out of step with his father and grandfather. Okay, the patriarchs, all of them, are pretty distasteful literary characters. Okay, Abraham starts off, distasteful, not that we disapprove of them, but that they're not heroes. They're not inspiring. Abraham starts off, is fearful, and starts off pretty weak. Again, if you remember the business with Sarah, giving Sarah to Pharaoh, and then giving Sarah to the king of Gerar, to Avimelech. And over time he grows more impressive to us, maybe. Okay, but Isaac, unimpressive from start to finish. Okay, Jacob too, as we said. Joseph, a spoiled brat and a tattletale. Joseph's brothers, again the patriarchs of the 12 tribes, are clearly less than admirable. Okay. The first character, it's only when we get to Moses that we finally meet a real hero in the Jews' lineage. Okay, Moses is the first guy that the audience can kind of get inspired by. Okay, a man who is manly and strong and admirable. Again, the kind of man that the Bible's original audience could have identified with and admired and liked, and as a heroic figure, like the heroes of Greek literature, etc. Okay, so it's odd to have a family history. This part of the Bible is a family the family tree of the audience of the Israelites. Okay, so it's odd to have a family history portray its ancestors in such a negative and uninspiring light. Okay, so I get your point about Jacob, that maybe he needed to be this kind of conniving character because the job is so demanding. But fear, weakness, giving your wife, both Abraham and Isaac, pimping out their wives to save their own skin, that explanation doesn't account for that. Okay, so what purpose? What purpose does this literary approach, father, son, grandson, great-grandsons? Okay, why not highlight their admirable features and downplay their less admirable actions and character flaws? Okay, again, it's so it's such a repeated pattern that clearly there's an authorial choice not to downplay the negative and highlight the positive. So what does this accomplish? Given the fact that the author is clearly doing this on purpose. The author's not an idiot. He notices that these characters are pretty fishy, or pretty not heroic. They're not Moses. Okay, so what's the function of this? What does it accomplish? And I'm not asking because I know I don't have an answer either, but I'm asking for speculation.
So maybe perhaps human beings left to their own devices, when they're scared and the stakes are high, resort to shameful tactics to try to get by, but it's the
Moses doesn't. Moses is great.
Is that a
David doesn't.
is that a privilege? Like, were they just gifted favorable circumstances where they didn't have to?
Who? You mean Moses and
Moses? Yeah, he was in a circumstance. Well, I mean, he started pretty rough.
Yeah.
But the tactics laid up before him. So the tactics laid up before Moses allowed him to take a route that wasn't so underhanded, and was a route that wasn't so underhanded laid before Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.
Yeah. I mean, by the way, I have to take it back about Abraham. There is one episode where he is this kind of heroic figure, and that's the War of the Four Kings. But yeah, I was thinking that when you said it was gifted to them, I thought you were talking about the patriarchs and the brothers, the 12 Jacob's sons. I thought that's what you meant, gifted to them. That perhaps the motif here is kind of, remember how we talked about God elevating the younger son? Okay, the younger brother. That God elevates the brother who doesn't deserve it by right. Instead, he elevates the other brother.
Underdog, yeah.
Yeah, the underdog. Or again, that this person is owed a certain treatment by right, by birthright, and God picks the other guy, the other brother. And perhaps in terms of a gift, these patriarchs show us that, again, God chooses people who don't deserve it, who didn't earn it through their virtue. Because again, the first brother deserves the birthright. Right? It's his by right, and yet God has the power to elevate, to give that gift to the lesser brother.
Can we make a distinction between, like, this is not a distinction that I see in the Bible, but between convention and nature, like convention being law, tradition, and so by the elder brother by tradition, but if you look at merit, or if you look at nature, if you look at like the inherent qualities, that again problematizes.
Yeah, so I look, we don't know enough about, let's say, Isaac and Ishmael, about their quality. If God sees the quality, and actually, okay, I take it back. We know why God elevates Isaac, because God promised Abraham seed from Sarah. Okay, so it's not even that I see that Isaac has real qualities that I prefer. My promise was that through Sarah you will have a nation. That's why he picks him. Yeah. But so, so here, maybe, again, I don't know the answer, but maybe the point, given that it's a clear pattern and that it's a clear choice by the author, maybe the function of it is to show that these people are not these angels. It's not their virtue that won them, it's not through their own virtue that they earned God's embrace or this alliance with God. Okay, just like the Jews throughout the Bible will keep sinning and sinning and sinning. The sin of the golden calf. At the moment that God chooses them, already they're sinning. Okay, so maybe this is kind of a repeated story, a repeated theme in the Bible that shows us that the Jews didn't earn the status of chosen people through their virtue. Instead, God elevates a person or a nation that he chooses. It's God's choice, not the Israelites' godliness or virtue, that got them to this close position to God. Okay, and so maybe that's the function of this weird characterization of the three, or the three patriarchs, or if you include Joseph and his brothers, the 15 patriarchs. That these are not great human beings, kind of above the rest of humanity. What makes them special is that God chose them. God didn't even choose them. God chose Abraham and is committed to Abraham's seed, even if they're a bunch of unimpressive people. So again, I don't know. Maybe that's it. The other...
It becomes very interesting because while the narrative doesn't have the choice of the son, the narrative does have the choice of the next mother. So the characteristics of the next mother,
Wait,
like Rebecca and
oh, I see. Yeah,
and Rachel.
yeah,
And then it ends up going through Judah and Tamar for some reason to get to David.
yeah.
Tamar,
yeah. Well, look, certainly with David, there's an additional issue with his Moabite lineage. Again, another kind of legitimacy problem. But yeah, any case, well, we'll leave that to later. But we'll definitely talk about David. Kind of a what is it? A target-rich? No. What do you say? A something-rich target.
I like target rich.
Yeah. In any case, the only other possibility that I can think of in terms of what is the author trying to convey by portraying the patriarchs this way is that maybe there's a theological... So what I suggested earlier is this idea of a gift is a kind of a dramatic... Well, maybe it's theological too, but certainly a dramatic theme. Okay, just like choosing the younger brother that we see in virtually every fairy tale. Okay, perhaps another theological or a more clearly theological purpose is that the audience, the author doesn't give the audience, again the biblical era Israelites, the author doesn't give them the opportunity to venerate their tribal or national patriarch as a god or as a godlike being. Yeah, because none of the patriarchs is that impressive a figure. None of them sparks that kind of awe and admiration and celebration. Okay, so this portrayal of the patriarchs, of the nation's fathers, keeps the audience's attention fixed on the one character in the book who truly is impressive and powerful and worthy and good, etc. And that's God. And that God is the appropriate object for veneration and admiration and celebration. Okay? And the reason I don't know this, but we can't read the author's hearts and minds, except noticing that he's doing this for a purpose. Okay? And the reason I suggest that this might be the function of this characterization of the patriarchs is that this changes dramatically when we'll get to Moses next week. Okay? Because Moses, like I said, is a man's man. He's strong and courageous. He's a man of action, but also humble. He sacrifices his own high status and worldly comforts to save his lonely brothers and sisters. Okay, so he's admirable and honorable. He's a wise lawgiver, a wise judge. He's a compassionate and caring shepherd of his people, but also a stern ruler and a general and a prophet. Okay, and he's a charismatic hero. Okay? So with him, we get a character that Jews of that era could come to, very easily come to venerate and celebrate as a godlike figure. Okay, and you see that, and you see that the Torah is aware of this because the author has a real. When we read next week or the next few weeks, you'll see the author will clearly will clarify repeatedly that God did all these things to liberate the Jews and deliver them out of Egypt and save them. Okay? It's not Moses. The author, again, goes out of its way to clarify that Moses was a messenger, that Moses was just a man, just a go-between, and that God is the one who's doing all these amazing things. Okay, so Moses is so impressive that he sometimes steals the show from God. So much so that the the biblical author has to intervene to ensure that Moses does not upstage God. Okay, to ensure that God remains the main character in the story of the Exodus, in the same way that God is clearly the main character, or the most, again, the leading character, the one that drives the plot in the story up to the Exodus. Okay, so again, so maybe that, like I said, speculating, I don't know, but maybe this explains the relatively weak and less than inspiring characters that the author sketches out for us in Genesis. Okay, we're never drawn to Abraham, Isaac, Jacob's sons. Okay, we never identify with them as heroes, and they're not written as objects of, that the audience would be tempted to venerate or emulate as godlike figures. Okay, they're very much human and with all the unimpressive features of human beings. Okay, and again, that'll change with Moses, and that's, again, Moses has been, the character has been equated to these godlike figures in Greek or Near Eastern mythology for a reason, because he really is that kind of inspirational, charismatic, super wise, super capable, with these magical powers, etc. Okay, and that will be a theological problem for the author.
These are, this might be going too far ahead, but Moses versus David, because David also has heroic qualities, especially as he's introduced.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of problematic qualities.
Yeah.
And and they seem to be different than Moses.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely different than Moses. But I think you're right that what's common to both of them is that the author, because again, with David as well, why tell us about Bathsheba? Why tell us about Abigail? Why tell us about all the... I mean, he's a rotten character. You don't have to tell us all that. Okay. Yeah. So, in any case, so maybe it serves the purpose, especially with such a successful king, such a successful leader like Moses. Maybe it perhaps the service or the function that it serves is to clarify to the audience that, to lower their veneration, to lower their admiration by painting a warts and all portrait of this person, perhaps.
One more question. So military capability seems to play a role where Moses never engages in any fighting, like no conflict.
Oh, no, he does. He leads them in the war against the Amalekites.
But he's removed, like he's the general who's on the mountainside.
Yeah,
he's not
right.
Like, whereas David is, like, from his youth, is like the one in the trenches.
Yeah.
And if we look back toward like Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, like, Jacob does get in the trenches, so to speak, I guess,
where?
When he wrestles with
No.
I don't know what.
No, look, he was trying to run away. Like, This guy comes and fights him. Like he didn't. Like Abraham goes to war and leads a coalition, leads his men in war. Jacob, yeah, like we know that Jacob's. I mean, we'll talk about. Is afraid of confronting his brother. You know, he doesn't initiate this contact with this stranger who comes to wrestle him. And he's, yeah, no, that's not that's not Jacob in the trenches. Jacob is not a fighter.
We have David who's in the trenches to being the general,
Yeah.
and we have Moses who's never in the trenches.
Yeah. No, that's like we get a different brand of leadership, a different brand of leader from Joshua on. Joshua, the judges, the kings, obviously they're warrior leaders in a way that we don't have beforehand. But that again, it's a feature of the territorial situation. Okay, they're not, when you're not holding territory, you don't have anything to defend. Maybe you don't need that kind of, Moses doesn't need to be that kind of leader because they're not trying to hold something and protect something. Maybe, but it's definitely. I mean, you're right that once they enter the land, the demands of leadership become clearly military. Okay, and throughout, including the last king, the Messiah, in the Jewish image of the Messiah, is not a spiritual being, but a king, okay, a warrior king who will bring the Jews back together and basically beat David again. Okay, recreate the kingdom. Okay, so before we move to the older Jacob and his wife and his reunion with Esau and that whole family situation, let's stay for another second on the story about the young Jacob, that episode with the stew, in which Jacob buys Esau's birthright. This is in 25, the end of 25, verse 29 to 34. 25.
So I have, once when Jacob was cooking a stew, Esau came in from the open famished. And Esau said to Jacob, "Give me some of that red stuff to gulp down, for I am famished," which is why he was named Edom.
Yeah, so red in Hebrew is Adom, and Edom. So it's the same basic. And if you look at when you're in Israel and you look towards to the east towards Jordan, you see the mountains are red, of a reddish color. So the land of Edom has this reddish hue, and make it so. Yes. It's, sorry. What I meant to say is that. Oh yeah. Okay. So okay, that's why he called his name Edom. So Esau is the patriarch of the Edomites, and later on in the genealogy, it kind of clarifies that Edom is a nickname for Esau. It's not that Edom is his son; he himself is Edom. Okay, so Jacob says, "Sell me your birthright." Okay, and Esau says, "I'm dying of hunger, and what do I care about a birthright?" And so Jacob says, "Swear to me today." And he swore to him, and he sold his birthright to Jacob. And then Jacob gave him the stew and bread, and he ate and drank and got up and left and disdained the birthright. Okay, so and this is an episode in their childhood. Okay, many years before Jacob steals the blessing from Isaac. So does the biblical author tell us this story to tell us that when Jacob will deceive his father to steal his brother's blessing, that it wasn't really theft, but instead it was the execution of this childhood contract that he had, this verbal contract that he had with Esau. Okay, so Jacob was not being a cheater, because when he and Esau were children, Jacob had purchased this birthright fair and square from Esau, who disdained it. Okay, so is that the purpose of the story, or is the author telling us this story to show us Jacob's ambitious and resentful character? You know, that this is a long-standing, that this isn't something later in life, you know, but this is a long-standing jealousy of Esau, and to clarify that again, that this is a lifelong ambition, and you know, it's an ambition from the womb, which we saw, through childhood, that we see here with the stew, and through adulthood. Okay, so my question is this story here about the stew, is it here to make Jacob look good or make Jacob look bad? Okay, did Jacob steal anything from his brother? Was Esau cheated, or did he carelessly give it away as a child? And the same goes for the father. You know, did Jacob cheat his father, or simply compel the father to execute a legal contract that he had agreed upon with Esau?
It's hard. So it would seem that their characters are somewhat revealed in this exchange, insofar as Esau is at least outed as being
Like he's
governed by his current desires.
Yeah, he's impulsive. Like I want it. I'm hungry now.
And so if the birthright goes to him, and if his children are somewhat like him, that would cause problems, it seems. Whereas in the future, if his children are like him and impulsive, impulsivity doesn't necessarily lead to founding a nation.
Yeah.
Or at least problems if a nation is founded on impulsivity. Whereas Jacob being characterized by cunning and foresight, because I suppose he'd have to have foresight to would be more conducive to founding a nation.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
I'll yeah.
But that's not. I mean, that doesn't make him. I guess the morality of it is much more. Well, none.
Yeah.
It seems like he's being deceived.
It seems a what?
Deceitful.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Although look, this episode is not deceitful. You know, this is actually, look, you can see in the older Jacob, with the Isaac scene, that's deceit, because you don't dare say, you shouldn't say such things. I want your birthright. Okay, a child, you know, a resentful, jealous child will say that. Sell me your, you know, I want to be the eldest brother. Sell me the status of eldest. Okay, that's again, it shows that this is an ambitious, resentful, jealous child. But adults, you know, he's actually pretty open about it here with the stew. Okay, so this is not deceit. This is I want this, you want this, let's change. I'll become the eldest brother, and you'll have this stew. Okay. So I think it shows the, you're right, it shows cunning, or it shows, not cunning, it shows forethought. And jealousy. or ambition or whatever. But again, this is a long-standing thing. But yeah, so it might even show both. Okay, that his long-standing ambition and jealousy and resentfulness in it, and this this drive, and also that he's clever, okay, or that he's a problem solver, whereas it confirms the characterization we've already established for Esau, that he is very base maybe, or basic, okay, kind of impulsive, governed by his
Appetites.
Yeah. So yes, I don't know if we're, look, I guess we wind up getting to know the characters better through this story, and both the negative features of Jacob, and that one positive one, which is only half positive, and that is cunning. So let's get to that thing about the last thing regarding Jacob's first act, okay, before his flight to Haran, and that is whether you think that Isaac was fooled. And if you could read it again, 27, that whole scene, chapter 27, verse 15 to 27.
I have Rebekah then took the best clothes of her older son Esau, which were there.
Actually, from 14. Okay.
14. He got them and brought them to his mother, and his mother prepared a dish such as his father liked. Rebekah then took the best clothes of her elder son Esau, which were in the house, and had her younger son Jacob put them on, and she covered his hands and the hairless part of his neck with skins of the kids.
But by the way, it says here that Rebekah put the clothes of Esau on her little son Jacob. Okay, now remember, Jacob's about 40 years old here. Okay, it kind of, again, I don't know if this is supposed to highlight Rebekah's role, as this not controlling mother, but like a spider who kind of manages her web, or again belittle Jacob. Okay, that he's being dressed. Her little son, her 40-year-old little son, was being dressed by his mother. And it's just a weird. She dressed up Jacob, her little son. Just sounds infantilizing. Okay.
Can I ask Jacob's age at this point, at this pivotal point, versus Isaac's age at the pivotal point of him being going up Mount Moriah?
Yeah. So with Isaac, we don't know. It's a huge range. It's anywhere from I forget. I think it was maybe 7 and 37, somewhere within that range. Whereas with Jacob, I think we later find out that based on his age at Haran and how long he spent there, how long he was here. So, but he's a grown man here. Okay, because obviously that's it. Because he's going to Haran at a marriageable age. Okay, so he's. I think I read somewhere that the calculation is that he's about in his late 30s or 40. Okay, but at the youngest, he's in his 20s. At the youngest.
So little does it.
Yeah,
it doesn't mean he's young.
But look, but we saw this with Ishmael too. Okay, where it kept referring to Ishmael as the boy in the desert. When he almost dies, when he's clearly already 17 years old or something. So it's a way to elicit a certain to create a certain image in the reader's mind, and yeah. So maybe this is here again in order to undercut Jacob in our mind, to present him as this boy, which again this text has done repeatedly. The smooth skin, sitting in tents, cooking. His mother loves him. Maybe. Okay. So, yeah.
16, and she covered his hands and the hairless part of his neck with skins of the kids. Then she put in his hands of her son Jacob, or put in the hands of her son Jacob, the dish and the bread which she had prepared. He went to his father and said, "Father," and he said, "Yes. Which of my sons are you?" Jacob said to his father, "I am Esau, your firstborn. I've done as you told me. Pray sit up and eat of the game, that you may give me your innermost blessing." Isaac said to his son, "How did you succeed so quickly, my son?" And
Yeah.
he said, "Because..."
But how did you, when he went, you just went hunting? How did you already come back?
And he said, "Because the Lord your God granted me good fortune." Isaac said to Jacob, "Come closer that I may feel you, my son, whether you are really my son Esau or not." And Jacob drew close to his father Isaac, who felt him and wondered. The voice is the voice of Jacob, yet the hands are the hands of Esau. He did not recognize him.
Okay.
Because
So you see. So first of all, he asks, "Who are you?" Yeah. He gets an answer, but he doesn't believe that Esau could have returned and prepared food so quickly. So he asks again, and he gets an answer, but he's still not sure. Isaac is still not sure. Okay, the answer doesn't satisfy him. Okay, so he uses so again, hearing was not enough, so now he's using his hands to feel Jacob to see if he's indeed hairy. Okay.
he did not recognize him because his hands were hairy like those of his brother Esau, and he blessed him.
Right.
He asked, "Are you really my son Esau?" And when he said, "I am," he said, "Serve me and let me eat of my son's game,
Okay.
that I may give you my
so
innermost blessing."
yeah. So even after he feels him, he's still unsure. And so he asks, "Are you my son Esau?" And Jacob lies and says, "Yes, I am." And so we're told right here in 26, so he eats in 25. Okay, he eats and drinks, and then Isaac says, "Come." So Isaac, we're told, still has doubts as he eats the full meal. Okay, this scene plays out over a long time. He eats and drinks, and after he finishes this full meal, he tells Jacob to come close and kiss him. And at which point, well, actually, read it. Okay. Come and kiss me, son.
"Come close and kiss me, my son." And he went up and kissed him, and he smelled his clothes, and he blessed him, saying, "Ah, the smell of my son is like the smell of the fields that the Lord has blessed."
Okay. So only then. Okay. So he. So Esau is. I'm sorry. So Isaac is suspicious, and he asks, and he get an answer, and he feels, and all these things, and he's still suspicious. And the final test is the smell test, and only then, after asking repeatedly and not buying the answer, only then does he offer the blessing. Okay, so the question is, do we think that the scent did the trick, and that at that point Isaac really believed that Jacob was Esau? Again, he didn't believe it when he asked the first time, or the second, or third, or fourth. Okay, but after the smelling, after the scent, did he really believe, and therefore giving him his blessing, or is this scene where Isaac is clearly not buying the act, um, is the point that Isaac senses that this is Jacob deceiving him. And he's testing Jacob with another question and another question and another question to test to see how far Jacob was willing to go with this lie. Okay? And when Isaac became convinced that Jacob was determined to go all the way and commit this terrible sin, then he just says, okay, if you're not going to stop yourself from doing this to me and to your brother and to yourself, despite the repeated exit ramps I'm giving you, then I won't stop you. Okay, you're a grown man. Like I said, Jacob is however old he is, probably in his 30s. Okay, given Isaac's repeated doubts, the hands are the hands of Esau, but the voice is the voice of Jacob. Is that you, Jacob? Is that you, Esau? Like he clearly isn't buying it. He didn't buy it from the first moment. Okay. So do you think the scent really convinced him, and that he gave the blessing in earnest, or that he gave the blessing knowing that this is Jacob?
So it's in the alternative is, if you don't have sight, what's your second most reliable sense? Seems like hearing would go the furthest up. Like you hear things much further from you than you can touch things or smell things.
Yeah. Well,
and hearing, he's never convinced by.
Right.
Because it sounds like Jacob. And then he touches, which is closer. Feels like could be Esau.
And he's still not convinced.
Still not convinced. And then he smells. I don't know how reliable smell is, because and then he's convinced. So either he thinks that that whoever he's talking to wouldn't have gone so far as to consider smell in a deception, that smell is the truth test because it's so not obvious.
Yeah.
Or
yeah. That could be.
Or he trusted his hearing from the get-go and was probing whoever he was talking to. In this case, he probably thought it was Jacob, to see how far he would go. It's the other alternative. The weird part is, I don't know what would be in his. I can't see what the decision is. If he did know, and he knew he was being deceived, to just go along with it and give that which was most valuable to a deceiver.
Well, and again, this is where that thing you mentioned earlier maybe comes in. But look, to settle this issue, again, there's no, we can't know. But on the one hand, you have verse 33. Okay, so when Isaac leaves, this is in 30, and then so Isaac leaves, and then 31, Esau comes back from the hunt and prepares a meal for the father, and he tells his father, "Get up, father, so come and eat, so that you'll so that you can bless me with your soul." And Isaac says, "Who are you?" And he says, "I'm your eldest son Esau." And how does in Hebrew 33 is, and Isaac trembled a great tremble, or kind of a great anxiety, had great anxiety.
I have in my translation, Isaac was seized with a very violent trembling.
Yeah, okay, good. And he says, "Who therefore brought me, hunted that game and brought me, and I ate from all of the food that he gave me before you came, and I blessed him. Yeah, and I blessed him. Okay, so on the one hand, in terms of this question, did Isaac know? It tells us that Isaac felt a great dread or a great trembling when Esau comes, which suggests genuine surprise. Okay, that he really was convinced that that guy was Esau, and now that he realizes that that's not the case, oh my goodness, I can't believe it. Okay, like your heart kind of drops to your stomach. Okay. On the other hand, maybe the trembling or the dread is not, oh no, I've been deceived, but oh no, what do I do now with Esau? Okay, like again, I might be, it might be a straightforward thing here that he was doubtful, as any person whose senses are starting to fail him, especially his eyesight, and that he was doubtful. And then the scent convinced him, and he really was convinced. It's just that the scene with Isaac and Jacob clearly shows us that Isaac is not buying it. Number one. Okay, so, but again, we're all doubtful or skeptical about things, and then when we're convinced, we're convinced. So maybe. But the other reason I bring up this question is that if Isaac was truly fooled by Jacob, why isn't he angry? I mean, this is a real sin. I mean, lying to your father, cheating your father, forget the brother. You cheated your father. Okay? And Isaac is not angry, is not hurt, and he gives Jacob a second blessing. In the beginning of chapter 28, before Jacob leaves for Haran, this is 28, verse 3 and 4. 28.
I have, may El Shaddai bless you, make you fertile and numerous.
Yeah, actually, okay. Come and get up and go to Padan Aram. This is to Haran, that area in Turkey. To Bethuel, the father of your mother, and take your wife from Lavan, the brother of your mother. And then he gives him the blessing that he gave Abraham. God will make you plentiful and a great nation, and God will give you the blessing of Abraham to you and to your seed after you to inherit this land that God gave to Abraham. And then he sends him away. Okay, that's not. That doesn't suggest a father who was deceived by his son, who was cheated, who took some, like he voluntarily gives him this he already gave him a blessing, and now he voluntarily gives him a second blessing. So again, it's a, like I said, it's odd. Okay, I don't know what to make of it. Okay, it doesn't seem like a father who was just cheated by his brother, but by his son. And if he should have any sympathy for anyone, at this right here when he's blessing Jacob, it's for the other guy. Okay? The other guy deserves something. So look, if again, I know it's a big if, but if Isaac indeed understood that Jacob in the tent is lying to his face, then the question is, why did he play along and not call Jacob out on it, or call Jacob on it? Okay, why did he lend his hand to Jacob taking Esau's birthright and blessing? And why does Isaac give Jacob this second blessing as he leaves for Haran. Okay, like I said, the second blessing is not stolen. It's given voluntarily by Isaac. Okay, so and here Isaac explicitly grants Abraham's blessing, meaning the land of Israel, to Jacob. Okay, this is no longer Isaac being cheated. Like I said, why would Isaac give Jacob a blessing after what Jacob just did to him? Okay, so again, let's assume for the sake of argument, because I really don't know how to even determine this, but for the sake of argument, okay, we can interpret this one way where Isaac really was fooled, and another way where Isaac came to understand, okay, that Jacob is doing this. Jacob is lying to me, he's going to steal from his brother. And he chooses to go ahead and give him this stolen blessing. Okay? So if that is the case, if we're going with storyline 2, then why does Isaac choose to give him this blessing? Again, if he knows that he's being deceived, why does he choose to go along with the deception?
It would have to be that he somehow was convinced that the blessing or the lineage would go through Jacob, and that would be better in this episode.
Yeah.
I have this, so 5 senses he can't see, and then we have hearing, we have touch, we have smell, but there's taste too, and the taste is the dish prepared for him,
Yeah.
and the dish was prepared by Rebecca.
Yeah.
So could it be, it's not see explicitly, that he could see that even though it was Jacob doing the deceiving, that this was orchestrated by Rebecca, and that he trusted Rebecca.
That's a good point. Yeah, he might. Yeah, that's a good point. He might have recognized Rebecca's handiwork here,
and that it wasn't about. Ultimately, he trusted Rebecca.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I mean, I like I said, I don't know if this is even the case that where Isaac came to understand it. Yeah, maybe. I was thinking more like that's a good point. I never even considered that, because the author does make a point of saying that Rebecca made these things, even though we know that Jacob cooks. In any case, maybe. I was thinking along the lines of what you said earlier about Jacob's Machiavellian traits. You know, that maybe Isaac came to understand as he witnessed in the tent, as he witnessed Jacob's driving ambition during that very long and protracted scene. Again, that scene includes a full dinner being eaten. Okay, so maybe he got to see in the tent that this guy, that Jacob, has this insatiable drive, that this son really wants this blessing. He's starving for it, and he's willing to fight and scratch and claw and lie and cheat and steal to get it. And that, again, like you said earlier about the impulsive DNA of Esau and the calculating DNA of Jacob, maybe Isaac kind of saw, again, in Jacob's determination to cheat him, saw that that's the kind of DNA that this nation will need to accomplish what God had promised Abraham. Because again, God told Abraham that Your descendants will have to persevere 400 years of slavery in Egypt and 40 years in the desert, and take the land from the Canaanites by force and hold it against many enemies. And you know, so to survive all the hardships that would follow and prosper and multiply, maybe this nation will need Jacob's qualities: cunning, deceit, etc., rather than Esau's kind of happy-go-lucky character or character traits. Okay, so like I said, I don't know if that's what's going on here. It's just that if Isaac was truly deceived, why did he give Jacob that second blessing? Again, it's not explained, but it doesn't make sense if he was truly deceived. And if he didn't believe Jacob's lies before the dinner, why did the scent convince him? Okay, so again, it's just that something here doesn't make sense to me, and I'm trying to find some sense in it, and maybe the solution is that Isaac was not deceived, and that he saw here that basically that scene in the tent was a test of character traits that will be transferred through the DNA to the people. I don't know. Like I said, I don't. I might be making mountains out of molehills here, but it's just that something doesn't line up here. Okay, if he was deceived, it's odd that he will be. You know, he wouldn't even mention it. You know, he doesn't chastise Jacob. Doesn't seem angry at him. Doesn't seem disappointed, and he offers him this voluntary second blessing. It's weird.
And it seems that Isaac's character overall is kind of wrapped up into this, whether he's completely passive or if he's understands and is in on what's going on.
Actually, that's a very good point. You know, that actually we've come to see Isaac as passive from a long time ago. You know, from the sacrifice scene, and then through the wells, you know, where he has the confrontations with Avimelech's shepherds, and he just moves away and away and away. So maybe it's just Isaac is being passive.
But like even in the original story, the passivity of a young boy versus a 30-year-old going up, realizing he's going to be sacrificed, and like submitting to that, if that's the plan, is like they seem different.
Yeah, but like maybe this is where what you pointed out about Rebecca's cooking comes in. That Isaac has been led, or has not been an active character in his own life story since we met him, and he kind of gives up his initiative for Rebecca's. Okay, because again he's been passive throughout in his relationship with Abraham, in his relationship with Avimelech, in his relationship with Rebecca, and now with his sons as well. And so if that is the case, if it's a consistent feature of Isaac, then it lends credence to the notion that he did know what was going on. Just like he knew what was going on when he and Abraham were going up the mountain. But I submit to your will, Abraham. And later with the wells, I submit to your will, Avimelech. And now, with Jacob lying to him in the tent, I submit to your will, Rebecca. Okay, so maybe that's it. Maybe it is the consistent character trait of Isaac. Perhaps. That's a good point. Like I said, I I didn't consider. It didn't occur to me that actually there is a consistency of character here, and when you consider that alongside that oddity about, why isn't he angry if he really was cheated? Okay, because the lack of anger suggests that he was in on it, or that he noticed what was going on. So if you take that in conjunction with his long-standing passivity, that actually makes sense. I like it. Okay, so so Jacob departs, and now we're at the latter scene in 28:12 to 15. 28. Yeah. Okay, so he leaves Beersheba and he goes towards Haran. This is in 28 verse 10. And he gets to a place where he spends the night, makes a pillow from the stones, and then he has the dream with the ladder reaching the sky, angels going up and down, and God speaking to him. So we just heard Isaac delivering Abraham's blessing to Jacob before he left. And now, okay, so he leaves, and that very night, God himself is giving Jacob Abraham's blessing. Okay, so Isaac delivered it on his account. Okay, my father's blessing, I'm transferring it to you. And now God is doing it directly. And in fact, parts of the blessing here are a verbatim reiteration of the blessing that God gave Abraham. And specifically, the part about how all the nations of the earth, how all the families of the earth will be blessed thanks to Jacob's seed, his offspring. Okay, so you can see here in 13, verse 13, 14, 13, 14, 13 and 14 are basically a repeat of what God had promised Abraham. In 14, I think is verbatim, or parts of it. Okay, with actually 13 too. Will give this land I will give to you and your seed. Okay, it doesn't matter. Okay, and it's interesting in this respect that God gave that blessing, again, that promise to Abraham about giving this land to your seed, and that all the families of the earth will be blessed by your seed. God gave it to Abraham in the first conversation and the last. In Lech Lecha, from your land, go leave your land and your father, and then go to and then Lech Lecha, go to Mount Moriah and sacrifice your son. So it's interesting in this respect that God gave that blessing, that promise to Abraham, when Abraham left Haran south for Canaan. And here God is repeating that exact same blessing verbatim and that promise to Jacob as Jacob is heading north from Canaan back to Haran. But the question is why now? Okay, why does Jacob? Conversations with God are not common. Okay, so why does God have a conversation with Jacob all of a sudden? Like, why now?
One suggestion would be that he's gotten a blessing from his father, but it was through this deceptive means. It doesn't mean that the biblical God is going to honor this or recognize it as being legitimate. Mm. And so it would seem to need to be reinforced by God.
Yeah. Yeah, it is true that this is a second hand, but so why at this point? Like, why not Why not before he left? Or why not later on in the trip? Again, the thing that I'm drawing a connection simply because of the verbatim repetition of the promise to Abraham and the similar circumstances. It seems to me that Jacob is repeating what Abraham did. Jacob is leaving his homeland, leaving his family, leaving his promised land, exactly like Abraham did. Abraham left his homeland, his father's house, his family. He's leaving his past and his security and his future behind him, just like Abraham did. But unlike Abraham, who had God's word that this will turn out okay for you, like you said, Jacob only has had Isaac's assurance, that this is a low point, but things will turn around for you. Okay, and so look, Jacob is at a very low point. Okay, he's on the road alone. He's at the mercy of the world because he doesn't have a family. Like he has no protection. Okay, so he's vulnerable and insecure, and so God, after it seems to me that this is the kind of the issue that's at play: the vulnerability, the insecurity, the lack of certainty about the future comes into play, because after God gives him this national promise, again in verse 13 and 14, which is basically what he had promised Abraham, and what God had promised Isaac too in their conversation about their offspring becoming a great people and owning this land in the far future. God then adds another element in verse 16, in which God assures Jacob about his own near future. Okay, so again, for your offspring, this will happen, and a blessing to the world and everything. And then it says, I am with you, and I will protect you wherever you go. And I will return you to this land, for I will not leave you till I have made good on everything that I have promised you. Okay. So again, it just like we saw that God had these conversations with Abraham when he could see that Abraham is afraid. This additional part of the blessing by God to Jacob indicates that he senses that Jacob is afraid, which, again, you don't have to be a Sigmund Freud to understand that a man traveling alone, away from his family, across half the globe, is going to be fearful about his security. Because all the promises are about the far future for your children. I don't even know if I'm going to be alive by the end of tomorrow. So he makes him this really amazing promise. I'm with you, I'll protect you wherever you go, and I'll return you to this land because I won't leave your side until I have made good my promise to you. Okay. So, what do you make of? So it's an amazing promise, amazing offer. What do you make of Jacob's response in verses 18 immediately, verses 18 to 22?
He's
Actually,
impressed.
read it to me so I can see if the translation is picks up the features of the Hebrew answer.
I have early in the morning, Jacob took the stone that he had put under his head and set it up as a pillar and poured oil on top of it. He named the site Bethel, but previously the name of the city had been Luz. Jacob then made a vow, saying, if God remains with me, if he protects me on this journey that I am making, and gives me bread to eat and clothing to wear, and if I return safe to my father's house, the Lord shall be my God.
Okay. And this stone will be kind of
Pillar,
a monument to the house of God. And everything that you give me, I will give you a tenth, a tithe, to you, implied at this temple. So, what do you make of this response?
he's impressed. He takes it somewhat seriously, but is skeptical
Why do you say
because
that?
there's a subjunctive. Like if these things happen that confirm what seems to be happening, then I'll go along with it, but not until then.
Then you'll be my God. Then I will recognize you as my God. Okay, so he puts God to the test. Okay, so God just promised him protection and a safe return to Canaan, etc. Everything that you just read. But Jacob doesn't pocket that promise and say, thank you. Instead, he flips the promise. Okay, he says, if you, God, safeguard me and return everything else, then I will accept you as my God and build you a temple and worship you and tithe you, a tenth of everything I have. Okay. So, what does this say about Jacob? I mean, is it, well, yeah, what does it tell you about Jacob?
He's kind of skeptical like Abraham. Like he doesn't trust that this isn't in his own imagination or
right.
I know, just some kind of illusion.
Right. Look, you're absolutely right. It's exactly like Abraham. Okay. Jacob is not at Abraham's level of trust in God. He's not the old Abraham, the post Isaac's birth Abraham. Okay. He doesn't fully believe, which is completely understandable because we saw Abraham also. Abraham didn't start off as devout. He had a long and elaborate relationship with God in which God taught Abraham gradually and repeatedly that God was real and that Abraham wasn't crazy and that God was not just powerful enough to perform some kind of the most absurd miracles, but that he was reliable and had good judgment and that he cared for Abraham and he had Abraham's back. So it took a long time for Abraham to come to know God like this and trust that God is all these things. Jacob never had this kind of relationship with God. He's never had any relationship with God. This is his very first encounter with God. And so as far as Jacob knows, this is just, again, a voice in his head. And so again, just kind of keep in mind that predicament of the man of faith that we talked about with Abraham. Okay, that doubt is built in to the concept of religious faith. So look, as far as Jacob is concerned, this voice might simply be his fear that he will be homeless and penniless and alone for the rest of his life. Okay? So when Abraham experienced doubt about God, he demanded a miracle from God, and he got it. And only then did Abraham believe that God was the real deal. Okay, so perhaps the biblical author is replaying that evolving relationship here with Jacob, where Jacob demands what for him now seems like a miracle. And if God proves himself to Jacob, as he did to Abraham, then Jacob will be as devout as Abraham. Then I will know that you're God, and I will worship you, and everything. Okay. So that's again, that makes sense to me. But that's the charitable explanation for this response from Jacob. Okay. The uncharitable explanation is that Jacob is not, as we've seen before, is not a man of particularly admirable character. Okay, he was born unhappy with his lot. He was born committed to getting more than what life gave him. And it's not simply that he's greedy because he wants more than he has. Rather, he thinks that the world, that life or God cheated him out of something. Okay, and he's determined to get it back. Okay, so if that is the case, so again, I'm kind of leaning towards the more charitable explanation that we just discussed, along with Abraham. But if it's meant to be uncharitable, where do you see in the text support for this second explanation in his response? Again, 18 to...
It's if I get these things, if I'm protected. Once all those things happen, only then will the Lord be my God.
Yeah, if you compare, so again, God is promising him, again, forget the promise to the nation regarding the seed and everything else, but just verse 15. I will be with you and protect you wherever you go, and I will return you here. Da 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 da. Just verse 15, verses verse
20,
21. Yeah. What's the difference?
In 15, God says, I will not leave you until I have done what I was, remember, I'm with you. I will always protect you wherever you go and will bring you back to the land. And in 2021, he doesn't mention being brought back. Return safe to my father's house.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, the father's house is clearly in the land of Israel, in the land of Canaan. No, that I don't think. I think
I will not leave you until I've done what I've promised you.
See, to me, the difference is verse 20. Okay? Because God promised him protection. I'm with you, I'll stay with you, and I'll return you to the land of Canaan safely. Okay? But when Jacob flips that, Jacob makes a vow, kind of a flip thing. If this indeed happens, then I'll believe you, worship you, etc., etc. But he doesn't just say, if you will protect me and return me to the land. He says, if you will deliver me to Haran safely, feed me, keep me clothed, and then return me to my homeland, then I will live up to my side of the bargain. Okay, so he's actually bargaining with God. Okay, God says, I'll offer you protection and return you back to your land. Okay, I'm God, I'll do these things for you. And Jacob's at the market. Okay, okay, I want the protection to and from, and I want food, and I want clothing. Okay, if you do these four things for me, then I'll live up to my side of the bargain and accept you as God with a temple and a tithe, etc. So look, so again, these are, I raise the uncharitable interpretation as a possibility because of the character of Jacob that we've come to know already. So again, like I said, I'm leaning towards the more charitable explanation, the man of faith, just like we saw with Abraham. But this verse 20, it's brazen. It's brazen. Like you're haggling with God. Okay, and again, I can understand the test. Okay, where look, I'm not sure that you're God. Actually, look, maybe it's part of that miracle, because look, I'm leaving penniless, and if you perform this miracle, what seems to me now is a miracle, where I will not just gain protection and come home, but rich, or not rich, but if I don't,
with some relishes.
if I don't starve and walk around naked because I'm so penniless. So maybe it's part of that miracle that he's asking, but it's okay. So which of these, do you think the author is guiding us towards the more charitable explanation for this? For Jacob flipping the promise, or the more uncharitable one? Is it lack of faith, the charitable explanation, or lack of character, which is the uncharitable explanation?
So the only haggling that we've seen, I think, thus far is when over Sodom and Gomorrah,
Yeah.
Which was not for Abraham's benefit.
Yeah.
It was more altruistic than that. And this is haggling for clearly relishes for Jacob. They're not necessary.
Yeah. I mean, which shocks you more? The charitable explanation of lack of faith, or the uncharitable explanation of lack of character? Which is more kind of, with Jacob treating God as his butler and asking, I also want food and clothing.
The second one seems more shocking to me.
I asked because the question is, how do we determine what the author's intent is here? And maybe the less shocking option is the more plausible one, but maybe not, I don't know.
And there was this whole wrestling scene that comes after this is different than anything that happened to Abraham and Jacob.
Yeah, but again, you got my email on that, right? With the kind of the different explanation of who's speaking.
Let me double check. Why am I between the Elohim?
Yeah, that's I sent you after our meeting last week about the different explanation about that there's this lack of clarity over who's speaking in that wrestling scene with the angel. Yes, I don't think you got it.
Sure.
So if you look at your email from last Saturday night. Okay, look, I'll just send it to you again. It's this. Well, I'll just send it to you. Yeah, it's a weird scene, and it's a complicated construction, or it's not complicated. It's a confusing construction over who is speaking and who's blessing, etc. And the meaning, as I read it, and again, I'll send you the explanation. It seems that the simplest interpretation of who is speaking to whom, and what that angel is doing, is in context of the upcoming meeting with Esau. But okay, before we get there, there's the whole period with in Haran. So this is the highlight of the height of this drama, the love scene at the well that leads to the big switcheroo on the wedding night. Okay. Now, by the way, in this regard, something that all of us modern people miss when we read this is a sense of surprise that ancient audiences immediately felt at the description of Jacob at the well. If you take a look at 29, 1 through 4, 29, 1 through 4, and then, okay, so he's, so he went towards Haran, and he sees a well and 3 flocks of sheep drinking from it, and a huge stone on the mouth of the well, and all the flocks gathered there, and the shepherds rolled the stone off the mouth of the well and watered the sheep and returned the stone to its place on top of the well. And Jacob asked them where they're from, and they're from Haran. Okay, and then verse 7 through 8, 7, 8, and there she comes with the sheep, and he says, it's it's still high noon. There's still a lot of daylight left. Why don't you feed the sheep and go shepherd them? And they said, no, we cannot do so until all the herds come in, and then we will roll the stone off the well and water the flocks. And then if you look at 10, when Jacob saw Rachel, the daughter of his mother, the daughter of the brother of his mother, and the flocks of sheep, he went to the well and rolled the stone off the well and watered the sheep, gave water to the sheep. Okay. So again, we all don't notice what, the exclamation mark in this scene, but what do you notice in these verses?
How did he do it by himself?
Right. But why is it? Why do you get from the way the verses are structured that this is a surprise? Because the Bible is very terse. It's very economic in its language. The biblical author is a man of few words. So if you see the Bible going on and on about something or repeating something, there's a purpose there. Okay, so if you think of some person who's very reserved and laconic, the strong silent type, if that person goes long about something or repeats himself, then you know that he's not simply yammering, because it's not in his nature to yammer. Okay, so if he's going on about something, it's a really important thing to him to clarify. Okay, so what does this man of few words, the author here, repeat and waste our time with in these verses that I just read?
The nature of how the rock can be removed from the well.
Right. Only, it's the other shepherds. They, in plural, came and watered the flocks. They rolled the stone. They rolled it back. Who cares? Okay. Clearly, and Jacob wants them to finish, but they say that they cannot do it until all the flocks arrive, so that they will roll the stone off again. And then he rolls it off himself. Okay, so again, we haven't seen a stone well in our lives, but they, the original audience, if it's a small well, then it's a small stone. But it says it's a big well that had a huge stone that required multiple people to roll it open or shut. So why is it such a big shocker to us, the readers, to read about Jacob doing it on his own?
Well, Jacob was the stay-at-home mama's boy kind of type.
Exactly.
When Rachel shows up, apparently he gets these superhuman powers.
Exactly.
Can move rocks.
Exactly. We've come to know Jacob as not a he-man. Okay, this isn't Esau. Okay, not a man of the field. He's slight, soft hands, smooth skin, and this guy, this man who dwells in tents, rolls this stone on his own. Okay, and again, just kind of when a man wants to impress a woman, ain't no mountain high enough and ain't no well stone heavy enough against the power of love. So they fall in love at the well, which leads to Jacob working for Lavan for 7 years in exchange for Rachel's hand. And here we are at the wedding night. Okay. Now Lavan's story, Lavan's role in the story, is to torment Jacob and to inflict on him the sin that Jacob sinned against his own father. Okay, there's a clear symmetry between the torment that what Jacob undergoes at the hands of Lavan to what Jacob did by his own hands to his father. Just as Jacob took advantage of Isaac's blindness to switch the two sons, so Lavan here takes advantage of Jacob's blindness in the dark of night to switch the two daughters. And again, I want to remind you that Rebekah, who came up with the plan of cheating Isaac, is Lavan's sister. Like sister, like brother. And if we somehow miss the poetic justice in this wedding, that this is punishment for that, the switching of the daughters, like the switching of the sons, like if we're too dense to understand the symmetry, then the biblical author spells it out for us. Okay? When Jacob complains, Lavan tells him, this is in 29:26. Okay, and Lavan, so he said, "Well, what have you done to me? Because I worked for Rachel, and why did you cheat me?" And then in 26, Lavan answers, "It isn't done in our, around here, to elevate the young before the old, the youngest before the elder. Okay? Around here, we observe the proper order of firstborn first and second second." Okay, this is a clear reference. If you, the reader, didn't get it, this is a clear reference to Jacob's own misdeed. Okay, so Jacob is made to accept Leah's birthright as the eldest daughter after having usurped Esau's birthright. And I like the around here. Okay, in these parts. Okay, I know that in Canaan, I know what your methods there, but around here we observe the law. Eldest first, then the second. And
this is a curiosity question. Who's older, Laban or Rebecca?
I'm assuming that he is, because when actually I know that he is, because when Eliezer, Abraham's slave, came to pick her up, he dealt, I think, if I remember correctly, I think he dealt with Lavan. I think she was living in his household. Right? Do you remember that?
I remember. I think he did deal with Lavan.
Yeah. I think the negotiation was with Lavan, not with their father. So I think Lavan was already the head of the household by then. Yeah. So that wedding night is clear punishment for his own sin. And Jacob will continue paying for this sin later on when his sons deceive him in the selling of Joseph. Okay, again, Joseph, who had elevated himself over his eldest brother, tries to elevate the younger sister over Leah, but Lavan says, not under my roof. Then later on, Jacob will try to elevate his younger son, Joseph, over the elder brothers, but the sons put him in his place. The sons put a stop to it by selling Joseph and telling Jacob that Joseph was killed by a wild animal. And again, if the reader fails to see the poetic justice here, the kind of how this sin revisits itself on Jacob, if you miss it, then the biblical author forcefully draws your attention to the symmetry, because Jacob cheats his father by wearing Esau's clothes, again, to steal the top spot from Isaac's favored son. And Jacob's sons cheat Jacob by presenting him with Joseph's clothes, the blood-streaked clothes, to take the top spot from Jacob's favored son. Jacob used goat skin to cheat his father. Jacob's sons used the goat's blood to cheat him. Okay. So again, it's a if you read the story in one fell swoop rather than chopping it up and reading one chapter a week, then these connections are drawn. You don't have to be a literary to notice a motif. It comes to you because it's the same, the goat and the goat and the blood and the blood, and it's the connection is made for you by the author. Okay. So just like Lavan forced Jacob to respect the elder daughter's birthright, in the same way Jacob's sons will force him to respect their birthright in his own family. Okay. But in any case, Jacob's lot in life is to be the victim of deceit by Lavan and by his sons, and to have an unhappy home full of competition and deceit, between his two wives, between his sons, and so we can see this as divine punishment. Okay, what you did, God is now orchestrating for you as to punish you. But you could also just simply see it in a more secular way as a consequence of Jacob's own character. Okay? Jacob was envious and covetous and thieving and deceitful by nature, okay, in the womb, and also by nurture, having been brought up by Rebekah. He was a bad brother, he was a bad son, he was a bad husband to Leah, and a bad father to his two older sons. Okay, he openly paraded his favoritism towards Rachel and humiliated Leah. For example, in the meeting with Esau. Okay. And he then did the same to Leah's sons. Okay, so it doesn't require divine intervention for a crappy husband and crappy father to produce a crappy family riven with competition and intrigue and deceit. Okay, so again, you can see it as divine punishment, or you can see it as a consequence of Jacob's character, which we've seen since infancy. Okay. Now, with regard to the reunion with Esau, I asked you I guess you didn't receive that email. Have you received emails from me after, because I send them after every meeting?
I have.
Okay, so you do regularly get them. Maybe
Yes.
this was just kind of missed.
Yes.
Okay, so I asked you, so the details this is in Genesis, we're now at 32, when he's heading back to 32 and 33. Yeah. So 32 verse 4 onward. Yes, you see, it's a very lengthy description of all the preparations that Jacob prepares for the meeting. Okay, so what's it meant to tell us? Why does the author goes into such detail to tell us what Jacob did in anticipation of this meeting?
It's a competition again. It was from the womb that Esau is this hunter, man's man growing up, and Jacob comes forth with riches showing his worthiness in the face of Esau.
Yeah, no, but look, why is he separating half of his property and sending it along a different route? And why is he sending gifts in this kind of in this kind of order? And why is he separating the wives and the children, putting the concubines and their children first, and then Leah and her children, and then Rachel? That's not kind of.
He's frightened.
Pardon?
He's scared.
Right, exactly. So it's not so much that he wants to show, because look, he knows that Esau has done very well for himself. Very successful, very strong, very prosperous, etc. So whatever Jacob has, it's not more than Esau has. So it shows us that Jacob is afraid of Esau, and that he loves Rachel and is trying to protect Rachel. Okay, so he separates half of his property and sending along a different route. He choreographs this kind of rolling bombardment of gifts and prizes for his brother. And he staggers his column, kind of separates them along the route, in the hope that by the time that they meet, Esau's wrath will have either been placated with gifts or sated with blood and plunder. Okay, so I'm sending all the stuff that I care less about, material wealth and gifts and goats and sheep, etc., etc. And he's clearly protecting what is dearest to him at the back of the column. Okay, so if his brother isn't placated by the first gift, maybe he'll be placated by the third or fourth or fifth gift. And if Esau is not placated, then as the front of the column suffers the wrath of Esau, Jacob will be able to spirit Rachel and Joseph at the back of the column away from the slaughter. Okay, so it shows us this detailed preparation and the choreography of gifts and providing Esau with gifts and providing himself, Jacob, with space from Esau, away from Esau. Okay. So again, so what this scene shows is, again, that he's afraid of Esau like he was when he left, however many years ago, that he loves Rachel and wants to protect her, and that he's clever. Okay, that he's very cunning. Okay, look, we've seen Jacob summon great physical strength at the well to get what he wants, and we see him here doing so again as he fights all night with that mysterious man who seems to have been God himself. Okay, so we see Jacob summoning great strength. So we see this ambition in Jacob. Okay, we saw it at the tent with Isaac. We see it at the well. We see it fighting God or the angel. And on the one hand, strength. And we've seen Jacob rely on cunning to get what he's after as well. From his dealings with Esau and the stew, to cheating his father, to very cleverly dealing with Lavan regarding his pay in chapters 30 and 31, with the genetic engineering of the flocks. To here, with his preparation, with his very careful preparation for the reunion with Esau. And also, if you look at how he speaks with Esau when they meet, also kind of very clever to assuage Esau's wrath and placate him. Plus, in the way that Jacob reminds God, hey, God, you promised to bring me home safely. Before the meeting, Jacob turns to God to remind God that part of the promise was for you to bring me home safely. Okay, I'm about to meet Esau. Don't forget, the promise is not yet fulfilled. Okay, so this story of these preparations and the meeting with Esau doesn't teach us anything new about Jacob, but it reaffirms what we already knew about his character: ambition, drive, cunning. He's clever. Okay. How about Esau? What do you learn about Esau?
Doesn't seem like he's got that much, like he's gotten over his grudge.
Right. So, do you know anything? Do you learn anything about Esau? So, if with with Jacob, the story simply confirms what we already knew. How about with Esau? Do you learn something new about him, or does it confirm what you knew about him?
So, in the past, we knew that he was very angry when Jacob stole this blessing and that he wanted to kill him. He's clearly at this point gotten over that and is capable of getting over that kind of deception.
Right, but it seems consistent with his character. Like we knew him as a good guy, simple, straightforward, didn't have any ill will towards Jacob until Jacob cheated him. Okay, so he was angry then. But this is still the same Esau. A good brother, like he's still straightforward. What you see is what you get. Still has no ill will towards Jacob. And so the question that this reunion raises is whether we attribute the reconciliation to Esau not being the type of guy who'd hold a grudge, or do we attribute it to Jacob's cleverness at placating and assuaging Esau?
My understanding leans more towards the former, that Jacob was, he didn't know his brother Esau as well as he thought he did.
He didn't know?
He misunderstood his brother. He didn't understand his brother. He was utterly scared of his brother. If he knew his brother better, he wouldn't.
Yeah. Clearly, Jacob is still there 20 years ago, still at the moment. Okay, whereas Esau had moved on. Okay, and you're right that Jacob clearly thought that Esau was that kind of guy. Okay, now when you read this, like I know it wasn't the first time you read it, but when you read in 32 verse 7, where Jacob sends, again, it says angels, but like I told you, angels are simply messengers or agents. And in verse 7, and the messengers returned to Jacob to say, we came to Esau your brother, and he is coming towards you with 400 men with him. So when you read this, that Esau is approaching with 400 men, did you think that he was coming in peace? Like, again, I know that it wasn't your first reading,
No.
but is the impression that he was coming in peace and that Jacob was needlessly afraid, or that he was coming in anger and Jacob was wisely afraid and wisely placating and wisely preparing his camp for the worst?
I was reading it. I thought that Jacob should probably have 500 men behind him.
Yeah. So it's the fact that the text only says he's coming with 400 men. 400 men is a scary representation. And it's clear that Jacob feared the worst. Okay, that Jacob thought that Esau was coming with a sword, not a hug. Okay, but when we read the reunion scene, it becomes obvious that Esau was not placated by the gifts. Okay, that it's not that the gift, because he didn't take any of the gifts. Am I right? Da-da. So this is in 33. And he's talking to him and offering him. Yeah, he's not. He doesn't take any of this stuff. Okay, so we can see that, again, it's clear that Jacob was afraid, and he was devising all these things. But we see that Esau really did get over it. He didn't need placating because he didn't take any of the stuff that Jacob offered him. Now, one poignant thing about the two brothers' reconciliation is how it actually. So the two brothers reconcile, but this reconciliation deepens the. What's the opposite of reconciliation? The division between the two sisters, and deepens the divisions between their sons. Because Jacob publicly, like again, he's arranging his camp in ascending order of importance. Okay, first the flocks, then the slave women and their sons, the concubines and their sons, then Leah and her sons, and then Rachel and her son with Jacob. Okay, so he's Jacob publicly shows the entire family, not to mention Esau, shows his love for Rachel and his disdain for Leah. He shows the entire clan by the way he's positioning the two wives and their sons in the column, that I'm willing to sacrifice Leah and her lesser sons, right, and her sons, to protect Rachel and Joseph. Rachel and Joseph are here. Leah and her sons are here, or I guess not up and down, but forward and back. It's geographic. It's a physical separation. You I care less about. Them I care a lot about. Okay, so this moment is actually the relationship between Rachel and Leah mirrors the relationship between Jacob and Esau. They're Rachel and Jacob really are made for each other. Okay, both of them are envious of the elder sibling. Both of them resent their status as the lesser child. Both of them covet the status of the elder of the firstborn. Okay, both of them think that they've been robbed here. Okay, and that they're owed compensation for this robbery. Okay, which is why if you like we've already talked about that scene with the ladder, where Jacob is not grateful for the promise but is haggling for more. Okay, you see the same thing with Rachel. Okay, both of them are ungrateful for God's gifts to them because they think that they're owed more. Okay? Protection and coming back to the land of Canaan is not enough. Clothing and food as well. Rachel, likewise, after God finally opens her womb and gives her a son, do you remember what she does? If you look at this is in,
she doesn't she rub it in Leah's face?
Rub it in what?
Her sister's face. Like
No.
she
No, she's losing that battle. Leah already had like make it five.
There's another son.
Children. Pardon? I just didn't hear.
She has Rachel has her son. Leah comes back with more sons, and Rachel has another son. There seems to be this competition back and forth.
Yeah. Where is it? 22. Here, verse. This is chapter 30, verse 22, 23, 20 to 24, 22 to 24. Read it for me because it's an explanation of the name. So,
On the third day, Laban was told that Jacob had fled.
Oh, so no. This is when Joseph is born. So this is chapter 30, verse 22.
30. I have. Now God remembered Rachel, and he heeded her and opened her womb. She conceived and bore a son and said, God has taken away my disgrace. So she named him Joseph, which is to say, may the Lord add another son for me. After Rachel had born Joseph, Jacob said to Laban.
Okay. So again, you don't have the Hebrew here, but in Hebrew it's basically there are two. So in the Bible, most important characters have an explanation for their name, and it's a phonetic explanation, which works obviously in Hebrew, not in a translation. Like Moses, Moshe, because I took him, Mashiti, from the water. Okay, so it just has to sound similar. And here it says that she gives two explanations for the name. The text has Rachel giving two explanations for the name. She had a son and called him, Joseph is Yosef. Okay? Because God asaf et chilpati, collected or withdrew my shame, the shame of not having a son. Okay? So I call him Yosef because God asaf took my disgrace. And then, so that's in 23. And then in 24, the very next verse, it says, and she called his name Yosef to say, Yosef, God Yosef, meaning will give me another son. Okay, so she just got a son. She's been asking, complaining, haranguing Joseph to do something with God and make God give me a son and everything else. And she finally gets a son. And the first thing she does is to name the son Joseph to say, lemor, to say that God will give me another son. I call him Yosef, so that God will Yosef me another son. Okay, so it's not, again, just like with Jacob at the ladder, not thank you God, you're a good God, I'm in your debt. Rather, again, haggling for more. Same thing here. Not thank you. She wants more so that she can catch up with Leah, who already gave Jacob 6 sons by now. Okay, so you can see why Jacob and Rachel have such a deep love. Okay, beyond her dazzling beauty and his manly strength at the well, they share the same fundamental problem, which means that they sympathize with one another's plight and suffering. Okay, because they're both the younger brother who's losing to the other brother or the other sibling. Okay, so they recognize themselves in, each one of them recognizes himself or herself in the other, and they bond over this. Okay, they're soulmates in the sense that they share the same grievances. And Jacob does not have this kind of bond with Leah. And so Leah joins the ranks of Ishmael and Esau, okay, as the eldest and rejected sibling. Okay. But unlike Esau and Ishmael, we feel for Leah a lot more. Like we sympathize with Leah, we feel sorry for her in a way that we didn't for Esau and Ishmael. Okay, in fact, look, you have to have, you're primed to have no sympathy for Esau, and you have to read the story closely again to see, actually, this guy's a good guy. Okay, the story's kind of told through Rebecca's eyes and Jacob's eyes, and you have to have a close reading to see that Esau didn't do any harm to anyone. Okay, but by contrast with Leah, the author, look, obviously we feel worse for Leah than we do for Ishmael and Esau, because the author wants us to feel bad for her. Okay, the question is, how does he do that? Okay, how does he make you sympathize with her in a way that he didn't do for Ishmael or for Esau?
She's forced into her position by her father to wed Jacob, and then we don't know how she feels about that one way or the other.
But that's already in the second scene with her. Where is it? 29. When we first meet her, when we first meet them. Okay, we already met Rachel at the well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Oh, she's the firstborn that doesn't have a husband.
Right.
She's already.
Right. So we're told in this is chapter 29, verse 16, 17. Okay. And Laban had 2 daughters. The name of the eldest Leah, the name of the youngest Rachel. And, okay, how does it say it in English, verse 17?
Weak eyes. So Leah had weak eyes. Rachel was shapely and beautiful.
Yeah. Okay. And Jacob loved Rachel and said that he will work for 7 years further. Your little daughter, your youngest daughter, Rachel. Okay. So, soft eyes. What is that?
I've heard
Is it
that.
a good thing? Is it a bad thing?
Heard it both ways. Seems that at least Jacob wasn't influenced by her soft eyes.
Well, what do soft eyes mean? I mean, again, so obviously we don't know exactly what it means, but is it a good thing or a bad thing to have soft eyes?
It seems like in Jacob's view, it's not a good thing necessarily. Like,
Well,
at least he wasn't persuaded.
Forget Jacob, the biblical author.
So if we go, being soft hasn't been a compliment so far.
Oh yeah, no, but look, maybe soft. Yeah, look, soft is. Uh, maybe it's different for women. Maybe soft. Maybe the word soft is not a good thing for men, but maybe it's good for women.
Rebecca definitely wasn't soft. And then
Yeah, but yeah.
Sarah,
Well, it doesn't use the word soft for them or hard. Yeah, but just in this verse, just in verse 17. Do you get a sense of whether soft eyes is a good thing or a bad thing?
so my translator translated as weak eyes, which would definitely
Oh,
put it in a bad thing
I'm sorry.
category.
So you have it as weak eyes.
Yeah, Leah had weak eyes, Rachel was
Okay.
shapely and beautiful.
So that's not fair. Okay, that's not that's it says soft eyes. Okay, so soft could mean weak. It could mean droopy. It could mean cross-eyed or something. That her eyes are tired or something. But it could be soft as in compassionate, warm, etc. Okay, the Hebrew word is soft eyes. Okay, my sense is that whatever soft eyes mean, it's not a good thing. Okay, because if you read these two sentences, Lavan had, again, think of it as fairy tale. Lavan had two daughters. The name of the eldest, Leah. The name of the youngest, Rachel. The eyes of Leah were soft, and Rachel was a beautiful, was a gorgeous woman. Okay, that clarifies. That this is her name was X. Her name was Y. She had these kinds of eyes. She was a great beauty. Okay, so whatever soft eyes meant, it's not a good thing. Something is wrong with her eyes. Something that made her unattractive, and explains why the eldest daughter is still unmarried.
But is it physical unattractiveness, or is it like an unattractiveness about her character?
It doesn't say, the eyes of Leah were soft, and Rachel was had great character.
No.
Yeah, Rachel. How does it have it in English?
So in my translation, Rachel was shapely and beautiful.
Yeah, same here. Okay, so Rachel was a hot woman. Okay, not her character. She was beautiful. Okay, so again, if you have this, again, the two sentences have contrast between this one's eldest, her name is this. This is youngest, her name is this. This one had soft eyes, and this one is a beauty.
But beauty in the past has been kind of a weakness insofar as because Sarah was beautiful, she had to be pimped out because then.
Yeah, that's not a weakness. That's not a weakness in a woman.
Well, for Abraham it was because it made him vulnerable because other men would want her.
Yeah, but look, it's like that song, if you want to be happy for the rest of your life. Like, clearly, men in the Bible and since the Bible are not looking, he's not coming to Lavan and say, give me your ugliest daughter, because then I can be safe. In any history from Helen of Troy to Paris Hilton, and in every fairy tale, a woman's beauty is an asset to her and to her family.
But it also causes problems when unsavory characters want to
of
take
course,
that.
But the same is true of wealth. If you have wealth, I can say the same thing about the woman. Don't marry a rich husband because people will mug him. Okay? That's not a... so look, in the Bible, clearly, Rachel is presented, all these beautiful women are shown to be beautiful because that is what men value. Okay? And so here, it explains Jacob's love for Rachel, or desire for Rachel, but it also explains why this older sister is not married. Okay, because again, that sentence is a sentence of contrast. Leah was X, whereas Rachel was beautiful. Okay, so it gives us a sense that soft eyes, which again, I don't know exactly what that means, but it's clearly not a compliment.
But if we judge them through their offspring, like Rachel and Leah, who God favored, through their offspring, it seems to go through Judah.
No, in the end, yeah.
In the end.
Yeah, yeah. No, but look, the two tribes that were Benjamin and Judah were the two tribes and kind of the head of Israel and Judea.
And Benjamin did some nasty things.
What do you mean?
That whole where the Benjaminites took that woman.
Oh,
and
then with the concubine in Giva.
And then everyone came out and slaughtered all the Benjaminites.
Yeah, but look, I don't know if you can. I can say to you about the Levites. The Levites were elevated, and yet they're chastised for the crime with Hamor in Nablus. So I don't know if we should see. Okay, I don't know if we should see what happened to the different tribes
as reflecting characters of
reflecting, but
God's preference to Rachel.
And look, and even if I take your position, okay, and it shows that Leah was the better woman, doesn't mean that she was more beautiful.
No, yeah, absolutely.
Okay? This clearly this point about her eyes is clearly something that has been detrimental to her in her unmarriageability before Jacob, and in the fact that Jacob isn't interested in her. Okay. So again, I was asking, how is it that the author makes us sympathetic to Leah in a way that we weren't towards the other disdained elder siblings, Ishmael and Esau? Okay. So that's one thing, that it presents the attractive the unattractive older sister next to the attractive younger sister, who steals her
birthright,
her birthright. Yeah. And second, look, Leah does nothing wrong. Okay. Esau can be faulted, or we can maybe not attach ourselves to him because he's this lunk, or maybe even a brute, but this kind of rough man of the field. Ishmael can be faulted for whatever it is, that mitzachek, that he laughed, whatever that meant. Whatever he did that drew Sarah's ire, even though we don't exactly understand what it is, but he did something wrong apparently. And we can also explain Ishmael's rejection by reminding ourselves that he's the son of the slave woman. Okay? He's not the son of the legal wife. He was never this. This promise was never meant for him anyways. Okay, so we don't feel bad for him that he lost out on something, because the promise was through Sarah's son from the very start. So they did something wrong, or didn't earn whatever they were quote unquote cheated out of. But with Leah, she did nothing wrong. Okay, and yet she is in this very unfortunate position.
And if anything, she did many things right.
How so?
She had her sons, she produced sons, and these sons, she named them in ways that honored Jacob. And
let's see with the names for a second. Okay, but still with the introduction of the Leah character, how else does the author make us sympathize with her? Like, what else does because look, Leah has become in Western literature this object of I mean, a pathetic character, not in the sense of pathetic, but that we feel this great pity towards her. You know, our heart goes out to her. It's harder to say than I thought. And the author made it so. The author is working to trigger this kind of sympathy in us. Okay, so how else? So there's the pathetic representation of the less attractive next to the more attractive. There's the fact that she is blameless for her situation. What else? You know, what other scene makes you feel this way towards her?
And then her father has to pull this contrivance to get her married to this guy,
right,
by having her fake being her little sister,
right,
and going in for that night with Jacob. And then afterwards, Jacob is upset, which again is a disgrace to her.
Yeah.
And then he works for 7 more years to get her younger
to get
sister.
the real object of his affection. Yeah, but it's a even the men in the audience, and certainly all the women. So the women will sympathize with her easily, but even the men, even the most unsentimental man can see that this is a hard scene for this woman. Leah spent her wedding night with Jacob as he called her Rachel. Okay, they were having sex and he was calling her Rachel. It's a terrible, it's a humiliating scene. And as bad as that is, like you said, it gets worse the next morning. Yeah, because she had to suffer this night of humiliation where her husband is calling her by another woman's name. In fact, her younger sister. Even worse. And then the next morning, everyone in the family, everyone in the town, everyone who came to the wedding found out about this. Okay, everyone now knows, like, it was bad enough when only she knew her shame. Okay, now everybody knows that she had to lie her way into her husband's bed. It's again, I think anyone, when he reads this scene, can see this woman. That is a very hard scene to be a part of. And on top of that, whereas Ishmael and Esau went away after their rejection, Leah remains there at Rachel's side to experience a daily dose of public humiliation as Jacob showers Rachel and her sons with affection and care, while publicly disdaining Leah and her sons. Okay, Jacob humiliates Leah in virtually every scene of the story. Okay, so much so that even God's heart goes out to her, and God opens her womb and gives her many sons. And again, this is not, this is not my interpretation. If you look at 29, verse 31,
As the Lord saw that Leah was unloved and opened her womb, but Rachel was barren.
Exactly. So I didn't even notice this about the originally. Again, the sentences about Leah and Rachel are all contrasting. This, the eldest was this, the youngest was this. She had soft eyes, she's beautiful. She had many sons, she was barren. Okay, so she can give. So even God's heart goes out to her, and He opens her womb so that she can give Jacob what Rachel cannot. Okay, now do me a favor. Read verse 32-35. I just want to again see the English, how it deals with it.
32-35?
32-35. So again, look, like I said, whenever names are given in the Bible, or whenever names are explained, it's explained phonetically. Okay, so in Hebrew, the explanation will make sense. In English, it doesn't, because the words don't sound similar. Like if you say in English, like Yosef, what I explained earlier, in Hebrew it's, she called him Yosef because God Yosef to me another son. Okay, so the connection is made clearly through the ear. Whereas in English it would sound, doesn't make any sense, because you say she named him Joseph because God will give me another son. What's the connection between Joseph and give? Okay, in Hebrew it makes sense. So assume that everything you read here in English makes phonetic sense in Hebrew, but I just want you to see the explanations. Okay, so read 29:32 to 35.
So 32, I have, but anyone with whom you find your God shall not remain alive.
No.
Earth, and
No,
then I have for 35,
no,
where she said to her
wait,
father.
no. This is chapter 29, where she has.
Oh, 29, I'm sorry.
Yeah, 29 verse 32 to 35, where she has her sons and gives them names. Okay, so
29 through
in
35, I have.
in 31, God sees that she is unloved, and he opens her womb, and Rachel is barren. And then Leah has her sons. Okay?
Leah conceived and bore a son and named him Reuben, for she declared, it means the Lord has seen me, my affliction. It also means now my husband will love me. She conceived again and bore a son and declared, this is because the Lord heard that I was unloved and has given me this one also. So she named him Simeon.
Okay.
Again, she conceived and bore.
Yeah. So Shimon, because God Shema, heard my plight. Reuben means look, a son, or see a son, because now God, my husband will love me. Okay. And then she had another son in 34.
Again, she conceived and bore a son and declared, this time my husband will become attached to me, for I have borne him 3 sons. Therefore his name was Levi. She conceived again and bore a son and declared, this time I will praise the Lord. Therefore she named him Judah. Then she stopped bearing.
Okay. And now read the next chapter, when she has her next sons, in chapter 30, 14 to 21.
Once at the time of wheat harvest, Reuben came upon some mandrakes in the field and brought them to his mother.
Okay. Sorry. Actually, okay. So this isn't. Okay. So she has the sons earlier. Like in 13, she has the son. Okay, but actually, that's a good one with the mandrakes. Yeah, read that one. Read about the mandrakes. That's good.
Came upon some mandrakes in the field and brought them to his mother Leah. Rachel said to Leah, please give me some of your son's mandrakes. And she said to her, was it not enough for you to take away my husband, that you would also take away my son's mandrakes? Rachel replied, I promise.
Mandrakes are to have.
Is it fertility?
Yeah, like a fertility thing.
Like in Machiavelli's The Mandrake Root play.
Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah, but so it's an ancient kind of cure for or it encourages fertility in women. Okay, go ahead.
Rachel replied, I promise he shall not lie with you tonight in return for your son's mandrakes. When Jacob came home from the field in the evening, Leah went out to meet him and said, you are to sleep with me, for I have hired you with my son's mandrakes. And he lay with her that night. God hated Leah, and she conceived and bore him a 5th son. Leah said, God has given me my reward for having given my maid to my husband. So she named him Issachar. And Leah conceived again and bore Jacob a 6th son. Jacob said, God has given me a choice gift. This time my husband will exalt me, for I have borne him 6 sons. So she named him Zebulun.
Yeah. And then the next verse, and then she had a daughter and called her Dinah. Why? Nobody cares. Okay. The names of women are not explained. The names of men are. Okay, so first with the names of all these boys, what's the author doing here?
So I guess the names are from Leah's point of view of what she wants or what her deepest desires are,
Right.
And they never seem to become satisfied
Right.
through these sons.
Right. Yeah. So the names that she gives her sons say what she is saying about her man. Okay, so it's, like I said, it's more poetic in Hebrew because the son's actual name is a lament that Leah laments about being ignored or unloved or hated by her husband. Okay, so the first son is called "See My Son." The second is God hears my plight. The third is God, my husband will be mine. Where is it? Levi, my husband will accompany me. What is it? Sixth, fifth, whatever. My husband. Yeah, my husband will honor me. Okay, so these sons are these walking billboards advertising the war between Rachel and Leah over Jacob's affection. Okay, and Leah is these names clarify that Leah is, she's
suffering.
She's suffering. She wants to win. She is in this. She wants Jacob's love, but she knows she's losing. Okay? She has hopes that maybe this son, maybe the next son, maybe if I have 6 sons, 7, 8, 10, 20, maybe then he'll love me. Okay, so her sons' names register her pain and her public humiliation and her envy of her sister, who doesn't have any sons, but she has Jacob's heart. Okay, and so again, the author cultivates our pity and our sympathy for Leah, unlike with Esau. Okay. And of course, Rachel is envious of what Leah has. Yeah, if you look at this chapter 30, in 1 through 17. Actually, look, the nice thing, we won't read it out here now, but there's this scene where, again, so 31 through 17. Right, where is it? Okay, yeah. So this thing with the where Rachel is upset, give me sons, and if not, then my life is nothing. And he's upset with her, and then there's this whole scene, again 1 through 17, where everyone's having sex, everyone's getting pregnant, everyone's delivering children by wholesale. Okay, Leah, the slave women, and another son, and more and more. So everyone is bountiful, except for Rachel, who's getting more and more distressed, more and more embarrassed by her failure as a woman, as a wife. Okay, getting more bitter, more desperate. And that's what explains her that trade with the mandrakes. Okay, so she trades her night. So again, the two wives have their designated nights. Okay, so like they have a schedule of who gets to sleep with Jacob. So she trades her night, her scheduled night with Jacob, to get the fertility treatment. And wouldn't you know it, that's the night that Leah conceives yet another son. Okay, so it's like a double knife in the heart for Rachel. That I gave her this night, and this is the night where she gets yet another leg up on me. Okay, if 5 sons ahead of me wasn't enough, now she has a 6th. Okay, so it's a contest that Rachel can never win because she'll never be as fertile as Leah. Not to mention the fact that the head start that Leah had on her. And it's a contest that Leah can never win because she'll never have the bond that Jacob and Rachel share. Okay, and Leah sees this when, for example, Jacob preps the family to meet Esau. Again, positioning her and her sons farther ahead so that if Esau turns violent, Leah and her sons will take the brunt of it. They will be enslaved or they will be murdered, rather than Jacob's darling Rachel. And again, it's a very her humiliations. Her first humiliation is private, and it's terrible, and all the next humiliations are worse, and they're public. Okay, so everyone can see the hierarchy of the women and the children as in the preparation for the meeting with Esau. Okay, everyone can see that, that Jacob cares the least for the concubines and their children, and then for Leah and her children. Okay, so Leah is just above the concubine, just above the slave woman, but below her younger sister, the prettier sister. Okay, and I think that scene with Esau, the meeting with Esau, is kind of the strongest in the sense that Leah knows now that this hierarchy applies to her children as well. Okay? Jacob will never love and care for my sons. My sons will always come in second. And we know, if you read the story just a little bit ahead, she's right in the way that Jacob treats Joseph.
And Benjamin.
And later when Joseph is gone, he elevates. Okay, so he elevates Joseph above the other 10. Then Joseph dies, and he elevates Benjamin above them. Okay, so her sons know throughout the story that Dad loves my aunt's sons more than us. Okay, so Leah knows. So Leah can see in the meeting with Esau that it's not just me; it's my sons. My sons will always come in second. My sister's sons will always come in first in Jacob's heart and in Jacob's family hierarchy. Okay. But on the other hand, Jacob buries Rachel along the way in Bethlehem, where she dies. But he buries Leah in the family burial site next to Abraham, Sarah, Isaac, and Rebekah. And when Jacob himself dies, he'll tell his sons to bring his bones back from Egypt to the land of Israel and to bury him, and I'm quoting here, to bury him where Abraham and his wife Sarah are buried, where Isaac and his wife Rebekah are buried, where I buried Leah. This is in Genesis 49, in verse 29 to 31. So in the long run, kind of like how you said about this about the sons, in the long game, maybe Leah's womb, in the long run, won out, where she got to be the real wife, the wife that's buried in the family plot, the wife whose children have kind of taken leadership in the nation. Okay, so maybe she was not repaid, but that all that suffering came to something in the long run.
Tough life lived.
Yeah. In any case, it's kind of late. email me and tell me if you got that email. If not, I'll email it back to you. Okay.
Okay, sounds good. Sounds good.
Yeah, it's really interesting stuff with that angel.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. I'll see you next week.
Next week.
Yes.
Take care.
Yeah. You too. Bye bye.